So, today, we're going to take a trip, a journey from the ancient abacus all the way to that smartphone sitting in your pocket. And along the way, we're going to uncover a fundamental truth. Wherever there is information, you can bet there's someone trying to break in. Let's get into it. This is the big question, isn't it? Whether we're talking about your bank account, your email, or even a country's national secrets, is it even possible to make something 100% totally, completely secure? Well, the history of computing has a very, very clear answer for us. And there it is. That's the answer. This one idea, this is the key to everything we're about to talk about. Security isn't some wall you just build once and then you're done. No, it's a constant evolving cat and mouse game between the people building the defenses and the people trying to tear them down. So before we jump into the timeline with all the cool old school tech, we really need to get our heads around this core concept. Security isn't about achieving perfection. It's all about managing risk. It's really just a continuous loop. First, you identify the risks. Where are the weak spots? Then you build a defense to mitigate those risks. And finally, you test the heck out of it to see if it actually works. The thing is, the moment you're done, you have to start all over again. Why? Because the threats are always changing. All right, let's rewind the clock. We're going to our first era to see how this whole process played out when a computer was something you could actually touch and hold, a machine made of wood and metal and gears. And we are going way back, from this simple abacus all the way to the incredible, almost steampunk dreams of Charles Babbage. Now, these weren't electronic, of course, but they were the very first steps toward processing information automatically. Now this thing, the Jacquard loom, was a total game changer. It used these cards with holes punched in them to tell the loom how to create these super complex patterns in fabric. And that was essentially the very first program. But this introduced a brand new idea. If you have a program, you have a vulnerability. You can change it, you can mess with it, or you could slip in the wrong one. So for hundreds of years, what did information security look like? Well, the key takeaway is that it was just physical security. To protect the data, you just had to protect the machine. You locked it up. Simple as that. But then, everything changed. Electricity enters the picture and computers go from these little tabletop gadgets to absolute behemoths that filled entire buildings. And this changed the game completely. From the 1940s through the 60s, computing was all about these massive mainframes. This is when we see things like stored programs on magnetic tape, and eventually the first big commercial computers from IBM. This put incredible power into the hands of only the biggest corporations and governments. And this image, man, it just says it all, doesn't it? Look at ENIAC from 1946. It took a whole team of people just to operate it. These computers were so valuable, so rare, they were kept in these super-controlled, air-conditioned rooms, a lot of times behind glass walls so visitors could just come and marvel at them. You have to love this prediction from Popular Mechanics back in 1949. It just shows how completely unimaginable the idea of a personal, portable computer was back then. To them, the future was supposed to be bigger, not smaller. So the security model had to evolve, but it was still fundamentally physical. The threat wasn't some hacker coming in from across the world, it was somebody getting unauthorized access to the building itself. The security perimeter was basically 4 walls and a locked door. Okay, now we get to the part where the rulebook gets thrown out the window. Miniaturization and networking didn't just shrink the computer, they completely shattered that old idea of a physical security perimeter. And this image captures that revolution perfectly. On the left, you've got this massive, specialized machine from 1890 that needed its own dedicated space. On the right, the Altair 8800 kit from 1974, a computer you could actually build on your kitchen table. This shift from a few giant machines to millions of personal ones is the single biggest change in the history of computing. And with all these personal computers and people sharing floppy disks, a totally new kind of threat was born. This wasn't a person breaking in anymore. It was a piece of code that could copy itself. The computer virus, a new, invisible enemy that could spread like a disease from one machine to another. So if the virus was the theory, the Morris worm was the terrifying proof of concept. Back in 1988, it was one of the very first major automated attacks to spread across the ARPANET. That's the precursor to the internet we use today. It showed the entire world that connecting computers created this massive new vulnerability. An attack from just one machine could now take down thousands. The game had changed forever. And that brings us right up to today. We're living in an era where the network is global, the computers fit in our pockets, and our data, well, our data is everywhere. Just look at this map. This is the new reality. The attack surface, that's all the possible entry points for a hacker. It's not a single room or a small network anymore. It is a global web of billions and billions of interconnected devices, and every single one of those points is a potential vulnerability. And this isn't just one big uniform network. It's a huge ecosystem of different languages, different cultures, different legal systems. And that adds incredible layers of complexity when you're trying to track threats and enforce security across international borders. That old security perimeter we talked about, it's completely gone. Just think about the idea of bring your own device. Your personal phone, the one you use for social media, games, everything, is now connecting directly to your company's most sensitive network. The glass house has been shattered into billions of tiny pieces. And this creates a huge trade-off. Of course, companies love bring your own device because it lowers costs and it makes employees happy. But from a security point of view, it's a total nightmare. A lost phone doesn't just mean you've lost your photos. It could mean a major corporate data breach, exposing customer information or top company secrets. Now, what's really fascinating is how, in a way, we've come full circle. With cloud computing, we're kind of back to that centralized model, like the old mainframes. But now, we're not guarding a physical machine in a room. We're trying to secure our data in some giant server farm that we'll probably never see, that might even be in another country. And that raises all sorts of new questions about data privacy and who can get their hands on our information. Our whole journey shows that the security perimeter has just kept expanding. From a single machine, to a locked room, to a network, and now to the entire planet. That fundamental process of identifying risks and building defenses hasn't really changed, but the battlefield is always getting bigger. It really makes you wonder, what's the next frontier we're going to have to defend?